I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
A dyed-in-the-wool conservative jumps ship to the Liberals as the Prime Minister inches ever closer to a majority government. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's a defection no one saw coming.
We need a serious leader who can address the uncertainty that has arrived due to the unjustified American tariffs. We need a global leader with a plan to make a more resilient Canada, a stronger Canada, a more self-reliant Canada for this critical moment. And that man is our Prime Minister, Mark Carney.
That is the voice of Marilyn Gladu. She is the newest Liberal, and she was reelected as a Conservative barely a year ago with 53% of the vote in her riding. But now she's bolted to the Liberals. She's the 5th MP to cross the floor since last year's election and the 4th Conservative MP to do so. And Prime Minister Mark Carney greeted her with open arms.
Marilyn has tremendous experience in business as an engineer, international business experience, and 10 years, 4 elections of experience in Parliament, and one of the most collaborative members of Parliament, working across party lines on important issues, and really dedicated to her electors in Sarnia and Lambton, Baie-Coteau, which I am informed rightly means where the waters meet. And the waters, in my analogy, are meeting in service of Canadians at this crucial time for our country. And I couldn't be happy. I know Minister Solomon, who knows her well and has worked closely with her over the years. We couldn't be happier to have this expertise, experience, and energy coming to our team. So welcome.
Mr. Solomon is Evan Solomon, a cabinet minister in this Liberal government, a former well-known political talk show host. According to reports, it was Solomon who made the first overtures to Gladu to gauge her interest in becoming a Liberal. Marilyn Gladu has represented a riding in the Sarnia, Ontario area for the last 10 years. She was elected there in 4 elections as a Conservative. She has no history of being a Liberal supporter. If anything, she's been viewed as more of a social conservative, with views from everything of vaccine mandates, abortion access, conversion therapy, and she supported the Freedom Convoy. But with this latest catch, the Liberal Party now has 171 MPs in the House of Commons, just 1 seat shy of a majority government. And that's before Monday, when 3 by-elections will be held. 2 of those by-elections are in the Toronto area, and they are expected to remain with the Liberals. The 3rd by-election is in Terrebonne. That's in suburban Montreal, where it's expected to be a close race between the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet was campaigning in that riding when the news broke about this floor crossing. He told news reporters it's more important than ever that voters send another Bloc member to Ottawa, all the while admitting the Liberals will soon have a majority government.
It is a proof or a strengthening of a majority that the Liberals wanted and already had. It is no more part of the campaign in Terrebonne. No one can come here and say, you should give us a majority. They have it. They had it already. And since during the whole campaign, they said nothing but that. They didn't come out on ownership accessibility for young families. They didn't come out about the buying powers of elders. They didn't come out about what should be done to make the Alto thing an acceptable thing for the population. They said nothing about all those issues. So now they find themselves 5 days before the vote with nothing else than pictures of Mark Carney out there.
This floor crossing will again raise questions about the future of Pierre Poilievre as the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He's lost 4 MPs to the Liberals. And there is a report in the Toronto Star today that suggests there is a growing belief in the Conservative caucus that the Conservative Party needs a new leader. Ashton Arsenault is a longtime Conservative strategist and a partner at Crestview Strategies. He told me this latest defection means Pierre Poilievre will have more bad days ahead.
He's going to be facing a difficult media day, to be sure. I think as of last night, his communications director quit as well, so that's not making anything easier in that regard. Look, I think, in a few ways, it's sort of death by a thousand cuts here. And the problem is nobody knows how many more drips are going to come out of the faucet. I think I'll give credit where credit is due to the government. They have done a remarkable job at keeping these conversations behind closed doors and otherwise secret. Just nobody knew that today was coming. And you can say the same for the rest of the floor crossers as well. And that in and of itself actually takes a pretty big chunk of skill. So, I think Poilievre and his team will do the obvious, and that's point out the many, many, many statements that MP Gladue has made that are critical of the government and issues that probably are not going to align her well with the vast majority of that caucus.
Dalhousie University political scientist Laurie Turnbull said she was surprised by the Gladue defection and questioned just how big the Liberal tent is becoming.
Prior to now, the floor crossings all looked kind of, you could see it, right? It was like, if things were different and we still had a progressive conservative party federally, you could imagine a world where Carney would be in that party. So would Chris D'Entremont, so would Michael Moss, so would Matt Genereux. It's not hard to imagine that. And maybe there is a like-mindedness that it's easy enough for them to gather around. And then when Laurie Idlow crossed the floor from Nunavut, there was a sense that, he's not just appealing to red Tories, he's also appealing to people who have identified as NDP. But you could imagine in that case, too, with the fact that the MP was from the north, Carney has such a commitment to Arctic sovereignty, things like that, you could imagine a scenario where that was kind of, that makes sense. But as you say, Marilyn Gladue is a conservative. She's blue.
Conservatives have been quick to point out that Marilyn Gladue recently signed a petition calling for an automatic by-election if an MP crosses the floor. She didn't mention that yesterday. Pierre Poilievre is sure to be asked about this today. He has a news event scheduled to happen in Burnaby, British Columbia, later this afternoon. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
He's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is a columnist for the National Post, Loonie Politics, and Troy Media. And he was a speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. How are things today?
Very good. Although I feel like we've had this conversation before, Michael.
Far too many times. Yes, I know. All
right. Well, let's jump into the big political news of the week in Canada. What is your reaction to the floor crossing from the Conservatives to the Liberals? Welcome, Liberal MP Marilyn Gladue. What do you think of it?
Yeah, of all the people that you could have picked in that caucus, she was one of the ones I think most of us would say you would never have believed she would have done it. I have to admit, this one surprised me a lot. I think it surprised others a lot. And that's simply because if you look at Marilyn Gladue's public record, this isn't a person who would be a prime candidate to move to any party on the left, or even if you want to just call the Liberal centrist. She doesn't really necessarily fit in there either. again, and I'm sure you've gone through it with other guests. I'm sure you've gone through it in the history of your show, as I have too. Gladue, has done a lot of things that just don't make a lot of sense. I mean, she is a MP for the Sarnia-Lambton area, which is fairly socially conservative these days, fairly conservative-leaning politically, and has been that way for about 20 years, since the last Liberal MP they had, Roger Galloway, was beaten in that election. And so it's been a long time since any Liberal has done successfully there. And Ms. Gladue in the 2025 election won her riding handily with over 53% of the vote. Yes, the Liberal candidate did finish in second place, but well behind. And that's the first time the Liberals have been in second in that riding in decades. It's crazy. And if you also look at her history, some of the things that she's represented, she had a bill that she wanted passed to discuss introducing Christian Heritage Month. Nothing wrong with that, but that's certainly nothing that you would associate the Liberal Party with. She opposed Bill C. She's had issues with Bill C-6, conversion therapy. She's actually talked about it on the floor of the House of Commons. And in one of the great ironies, and I'm sure we'll touch upon it quickly, just this January, she actually supported a bill stating that anyone who wants to cross the floor in politics should automatically have to run in a by-election, which evidently doesn't seem to apply to her. The whole thing is so ridiculous.
That's just the icing on the cake. And her statement says that her riding, the Sarnia area riding, is a bellwether. I don't know if she understands what that means. A bellwether riding.
I don't think she does. Now, I mean, I have to say it's been very safely ensconced with the Conservatives for a while. I don't know if she does. I really don't know. I mean, again, and there's been a lot of things that have come out about Gladue, which I'm sure we don't necessarily have time with. Pieces of her autobiography were released. Brian Lilly, a colleague through Post Media, he writes for the Toronto Sun and the Sun Chain. He actually posted pages and pages of it that he either had on hand or someone fed to him. Doesn't make a difference. And if you just look at some of the commentary in there, her travels to this place and that place, drinking, carousing. Again, private life, you can do whatever you want. No one's sitting here and condemning her for that. But the fact that she was so open about it, and the fact that she discussed these things, and the fact that she sat in the Conservative Party and basically said that she was representative of the right side of the spectrum, I don't know. It's just, again, whatever she is.
So let's turn our attention to the Liberal Party, because a lot of partisan Liberals are not happy, not necessarily caucus mates.
Why would they be? Yeah. Right. Well, why would they be? Good Lord.
But progressive Liberals are not happy. A number of them are not happy, or wondering what's becoming of their party under this leader, Mark Carney. What does this say about, say, the core principles of the Liberal Party now, that it will accept Marilyn Gladue?
Well, they'll accept Marilyn Gladue on one end. They'll accept NDP floor crossers on the other end. I mean, obviously, if you believe in the big tent philosophy, which some people do, they would make the argument that, well, every voice can fit under the sun, so to speak, and that if the party tent is big enough and that the ideas appeal to a greater swath of individuals, then you will have people like a Marilyn Gladue and others in the party. But I'm not surprised that progressive Liberals have spoken out about it. I saw Lisa Kirby did on X just recently, and I know why they are, because Marilyn Gladue, sure, they might be able to find some minor bits of common ground with her, but by and large, she's completely opposite to them and is very opposite to the way that the Liberal Party has been since Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister, and currently Mark Carney as well. But I guess what it does show is that for whatever reason, people are either moving via, personal reasons, political ambitions, fear that they're going to lose their seats, or a variety of things, which may be, unfounded in certain senses, may be reasonable in other senses. Mark Carney is the great beneficiary of this, because he's able now to convince anybody to basically come over to his political tent, which once again means that the Liberal Party, which historically has always sat on the fence, depending on which way the wind is blowing, will either shift right or shift left, it's now shifting in both directions. And even that's unusual for its history.
Okay, let's talk about what it means for Pierre Poilievre when we return. Michael Taube is with us, columnist with the National Post, Troy Media, Loonie Politics, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. This is News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
Here with Michael Taube, columnist for the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, with us every Thursday. There's a story in the Toronto Star citing a pair of conservative sources who shall remain nameless, I suppose. Let me read a little bit here. Up to 40 Conservative MPs are worried they could lose their seats if Pierre Poilievre leads the party into the next election against Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney. Two federal Conservative sources said after the party lost a fourth MP on Wednesday, dissatisfaction and worries about their future under Poilievre's leadership have been questioning whether or not a bolder move to spark change is required, with some MPs discussing whether to invoke caucus powers to force Poilievre out. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's nonsense, to be perfectly honest. I thought that reports a few days ago of up to 10 MPs considering floor crossing was nonsense, and I still do right now, irrespective of what we talked about in the first segment with Marilyn Gladue jumping ship. I certainly think that there would probably be a couple of MPs who are worried. I'm sure that these two nameless people, whoever they are, and obviously I have no idea, may have said or basically taken a number of conversations they had and amplified it. I don't think 40 MPs are that worried. And plus as well, we have to be realistic about it. In the leadership review in February, Pierre Poilievre ended up with 87% approval. And we have to assume, because there were lots of caucus members there, that they were in support of this. Do I think things have changed in less than 2 months? No. Do I think some people are worried? Yes, and that's fine. I mean, whether it's right or wrong, obviously this is the career that they have, and they want to ensure they stay in Ottawa as long as they possibly can, or as long as they desire to be there. But at the same time, do I think there's anything to this? No, and I don't think it's anywhere near this number. A small handful? Sure. But that happens under no matter who the leader is, whether it's a prime minister or a party leader. Up to 40? I'm sorry, it's nonsense.
Okay, yeah, let's pick up on something that you said. So the Conservatives do use this, just ask Aaron O'Toole, the Reform Act. So 20%, if 20% of the Conservative caucus, that would be 28 MPs out of the 140-member caucus, sign a letter, there would be a secret vote on whether the party should get rid of the leader. That's what happened to Aaron O'Toole.
Yes, that's right.
As you say, Poilievre just had a strong endorsement by the members of the party, the grassroots of the party at the convention in Calgary back in January. So how would it look if MPs tried to force him out?
Well, that's just it. And some people have been saying it today. And I was thinking it privately if things got tight with Poilievre during the leadership review, but they never did, so it was never necessary to talk about it. This would cause a major split in the party. And there's no other way to look at it, and I'm not trying to, raise alarms or anything. It would. When you have a leader who gained 87% approval, and I don't care how big the number of people were that went to the convention or how it was divided or how many MPs from the caucus were there, quite a few were, and it also doesn't matter how it's divided by province. That's the number he got. No Conservative leader in history, Rob, has ever received anything that high. And most party leaders don't. It would destroy the Conservative Party and the Conservative movement. And quite frankly, I don't think Conservatives would put up with this yet again to be in the political wilderness.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Very interesting this week. We'll speak next week. Bye-bye.
You bet. Take care. Cheers.
That's Michael Taube. Read him in the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Our Newsday panel, Focus Nova Scotia, coming up next after the news on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Time for our Thursday Newsday panel. That means it's time for Focus Nova Scotia. And joining us today, Rob Batherson, Vice President for Atlantic Canada at Enterprise Canada. Welcome back, Rob. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Rob.
And Matt Whynott is here, former Nova Scotia NDP MLA political commentator. Welcome back to you, Matt, as well.
Absolutely. Good to be here. Hey, Rob.
So obviously, Matt, you would be affiliated with the New Democrats. Rob Batherson, of course, more affiliated with the Conservative Party, former president of the Conservative Party of Canada. So let's just kind of take a look at Nova Scotia right now through the federal political lens, where you have 13 ridings, and it's all red. It's red from one end of the province to the other. Every single riding is held by a Liberal MP. It wasn't that way until Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor. It was 12 out of 13. Now it's 13 out of 13. Rob, why is that?
Well, don't make it worse, Rob. It's 11 out of 11. So,
11 out of 11. I'm sorry. My apologies.
We'll give the Liberals
I thought it was 13.
But I'm sure all Nova Scotians would love to have more seats. We'll see how population grows in the next redistribution. I'm going to break a rule that I always give clients in terms of doing media interviews, and it's talking numbers on the radio, because you can't really see numbers, but the numbers tell a story. And so in the 2011 election, where you had 4 Conservatives elected, 3 New Democrats, 4 Liberals elected, it was a 3-way race in the popular vote. The Conservatives had 36.7%, the New Democrats had 30.3% of the vote, and the Liberals had 28.9% of the vote. And fast forward 14 years later, you had the Trudeau sweep in 2015, and when the Liberals won all 11 seats in 2015, they did so with 61.9% of the vote. The Conservatives were in second place with 17.9%, and the NDP were in third place with 16%. In every election since 2015, the Conservative share of the vote grew from 17.9% to 25.7% to 29.4% to 35.7% in the last election. But unfortunately, in terms of having diversity of representation, the NDP vote collapsed. It went from 16%. There was an uptick in 2019 and 2021, and then collapsed to 5.7%. The Liberals got 58.2% of the vote. And so, I think we're in a new reality that with 2 parties standing, the Conservatives and the Liberals, the Conservatives are going to have to find a way to keep growing their vote with the NDP on life support. Because that is really the story. We now have, essentially a 2 viable parties in Nova Scotia, and the NDP on life support. I would have never thought, growing up in Matt and I both grew up in Sackville, a long-standing NDP stronghold for many years. I would have never thought that the NDP would get 5.7% of the vote in a federal election, but here we are.
Yeah, so you mentioned 2011, that was Prime Minister Harper's only majority government. Conservatives win what was in Central Nova, Cumberland, Colchester, South Shore, St. Margaret's, and what was in West Nova. 2011 was also that orange wave election under Jack Layton for the New Democrats. The NDP won, as you said, Sackville, Eastern Shore, Halifax, and Dartmouth, Cole Harbour. Matt, not a New Democrat to be found anywhere when you used to have such a presence there, not just in that election, but historically speaking. What's wrong with the New Democrats?
First of all, I just want to say it's funny. I was going to mention that Rob and I come from the same town, so that's funny. And also to say that, some of these things are just snapshots in time. I think we have a situation where New Democrats have been here before, in 1993. And everyone will probably remember 1997 when Alexa McDonough was leader of the party, and we won 6 of the 11 seats in 1997 in Nova Scotia. So, numbers do matter for sure. I would agree with a lot of what Rob said. In order for New Democrats to do well, we have to have a strong. The Tories actually have to do strong, and so and honest to God, for them to win more seats, we have to be strong. And so, this is a rebuilding phase. I was in Winnipeg for our convention. There's a lot of energy in the room. I think we're gonna have to find our footing. And I can remember the days in Nova Scotia when we used to say to folks in Ottawa, don't bring Jack Layton to Nova Scotia because he pulls us down provincially. So, Jack Layton was not always the best thing since sliced bread, and we have a lot of work to do over the next little bit. And if Mr. Carney, the Prime Minister, continues to have floor crossers, he's going to get his majority, and I suspect there probably won't be an election anytime soon.
Fair enough. But, okay, so you were in Winnipeg as a Nova Scotian New Democrat. You were at the convention. Avi Lewis wins the leadership. First ballot win. Big win.
Yep.
Dynamic, charismatic, great speaker. Not very activist, though. Very activist. He's not a labor guy. What's the buzz? Say among NDP grassroots where you are, man. What's the buzz about him?
Yeah, I think people are cautiously optimistic. I had a really great opportunity to meet with Avi for about 25 minutes, just myself, at convention, post leadership. And we had some very good discussions. And I would say that we have some work to do, 100%. We got to talk the language that everyday people are talking about, whether you're talking about the guy at the Timmy's or buddy at the bar. We got to be able to talk the issues that people care about. And, this idea that we're only going to talk to folks in downtown Vancouver and Toronto probably isn't the best way to go. But I think that we have, if he listens as he committed to me and others that he will, then I think we can get to a good spot. But this is rebuilding. We've been here before, as Rob and myself and other campaigners across the country know that campaigns matter. We saw that in the election in 2011, right? Jack Layton had a one-liner, and it went wildfire in a debate, and we ended up being the official opposition in Canada.
You don't get a promotion if you don't show up for work. You said to Michael Ignatieff, turned the whole thing. You're right there. Okay, I want to ask Rob, though, if would the Conservative Party be doing better in your part of the country, Rob, if it had a new leader? Because that's the buzz in Ottawa today. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Yeah, with Focus Nova Scotia, Rob Batherson, Matt Whynott is here. I don't have to tell you, Rob Batherson, there is a growing belief, just read the Toronto Star today, that maybe the Conservatives need a new leader. Do you think that would improve the standing of the Conservative Party in your part of the country?
Well, I enjoy reading the Toronto Star. I don't necessarily go to them as my primary source for news about the Conservatives. But here's the deal. From Brian Mulroney to Pierre Poilievre, I've been told my entire life that if you only change leaders as a Conservative, you would do better. And here's the reality. Pierre Poilievre got more votes in 2025 than Aaron O'Toole got in 2021 in Nova Scotia, than Andrew Scheer got in 2019 in Nova Scotia, and that Stephen Harper got in 2015. So I don't think changing leaders is a solution. I think we should stick with a leader for more than one election. We did that with Stephen Harper, and we ended up having great MPs represent this province as part of a good, solid, practical Conservative government for the better part of a decade.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about provincial matters. I've just been fascinated with Premier Houston's position on the cannabis dispensaries on First Nations reserve. Very hard line. And there's been a lot of pushback from First Nations leaders on this issue. The RCMP's gone to these communities, done raids. In the last week or so, protests have been set up on highways across the province by First Nations, bringing traffic to a standstill, frustrating a lot of people. A lot of tension between the RCMP and a lot of Mi'kmaq communities. Rob, why is the Premier taking such a firm stance here?
Well, this is a public health issue. And unfortunately, what is happening is with illegal cannabis that's outside of our legal regulated system, high risk, high danger, potency that can result in serious health issues for young people, and in some cases overdoses, and in some cases death. So we have to keep people safe, and that means cracking down on illegal dispensaries wherever they are, whether they are on First Nations or off First Nations. The courts have decided, and we'll see what happens in terms of the appeals process, but the courts have established that treaty rights do not apply to cannabis. And yes, it's under appeal, but we have to live in the legal framework that the courts have set out to date, and they have set out to date that there is not a treaty right for First Nations to operate cannabis dispensaries outside of the legal regulated system. So it's about protecting public health. It's about ensuring that we have good, solid law enforcement. The government has put forward a reasonable alternative for First Nations to opt in to a legal regulated system. And let's always hope that cooler heads on all sides prevail.
Okay. Matt, Whynott, what do you think about this and how this is unfolding?
I mean, I would say that the premier, certainly in other provinces where conservatives are in government or have been in government, they like to do this tough on crime thing to the greater public, to their base. I think that might be part of it. I try not to also pretend that I know everything on this issue. I mean, it's obviously a delicate issue. But I think that, there is a bit of a culture war here. And, I'm not sure if it's the right approach. Let's work with First Nations to make sure that those dispensaries don't exist and find better ways to move forward on it. But, we are where we are, and the Premier will be held accountable, no doubt, going forward on this issue.
But look, we're going to talk about this next. The Premier Houston's traveling all over the place, primarily because he wants to promote his agenda of natural resources development. He is not going to be able, this is my own opinion, he might not be able to proceed with his ambitious agenda, I would argue, with natural resources development, if he has a serious fracture in his relationship with First Nations, Rob Batherson.
I'm not sure that's the case, because I see First Nations on a number of files, opt in. They are looking for equity and ownership and economic benefit. And so, notwithstanding what's happening in terms of cannabis issues, that is not preventing First Nations in every part of Nova Scotia from pursuing economic opportunities that work. Again, we had a significant dispute several years ago around how the two Marshall decisions on treaty rights for the fisheries applied. We had, in some cases, violence in southwestern Nova Scotia, but that hasn't prevented First Nations from pursuing other economic opportunities. And again, as the Premier himself has pointed out, every chief in this province, I think, has a cell phone. Can talk to him anytime. He met with chiefs in December on this issue, and I'm sure there'll be good communication on both sides.
Okay, his political opponents, we're going to talk about this next day. He's MIA. Okay? He's a high flyer. He's going here, there, and everywhere, and he's never in the legislature. How fair is that for criticism? When we return, this is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Matt Whynott, former Nova Scotia NDP LNLA political commentator Rob Batherson, Vice President of Atlantic Canada, Enterprise Canada, Focus Nova Scotia for the Newsday panel today. Tim Houston's like a Stomp and Tom song. He's here, there, everywhere. He took 26 trips in 2025, over 104 days, a cost of $82,000. The legislature sat for just 30 days all last year, all according to the Nova Scotia New Democrats. So what is he, Matt? Is he enjoying the high life on the public dime? Is that the accusation?
First of all, I just want to say, just on something else I was talking about before, the idea about First Nations and energy, blah blah blah. The Premier made himself the Minister of Energy, which gave himself sweeping powers to expropriate a lot of land in this province to do all of the things that the Premier wants to do. So let's see how that goes with First Nations when and if those things start happening. The Premier is going in a lot of places, no doubt. I think there's a balance. You've got to be able to have a balance of the Premier being able to do the work in and around, various issues, regardless whether it's energy exports or labor market stuff. The reality is that imagine what could happen if the legislature actually had a set calendar where the Premier and his staff could schedule his meetings and trips around a legislative calendar. We're the only province in the country without a legislative calendar that's set. Only the Premier calls these things. And to say that the Premier didn't know that the legislature was going to sit when these things were happening, probably not necessarily on the right wavelength here. That the Premier, I hope, is following the public policy around travel and not flying first class, not doing those types of things. But we'll see if there's anything that comes out of these supposed meetings that are going to bring economic development to the province. It's all well and good that saying these trips are happening. Where are the results? What are happening? I'm not sure that Nova Scotians who are sitting at Timmy's know that these things are actually bringing the wealth and the prosperity that the Conservatives are promising.
Is he traveling too much, Rob?
No, he's doing his job as Premier, and we've seen lots of premiers over the years. Darrell Dexter went to Korea and India and Denmark, and the U.S. Premier Steve McNeil had a heavy focus on China when he was Premier. I think one of the things that Tim Houston's dealing with is with the election of Donald Trump in 2024, political leaders, regardless of party, are taking a Team Canada approach and getting out there, promoting the country, promoting the province to investors. And he's doing his job, and that's what people expect. They expect it of Prime Minister Carney. They expect it of Tim Houston. They expect it of Wab Kinew in Manitoba and Susan Holt in New Brunswick. And, I know there was a meeting recently in Toronto with the Federal Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson, and he talked about how great it was to be at one of the world's leading energy conferences, and regardless of party, to stand together, Tim Hodgson, Tony Wakeham from Newfoundland Labrador, Daniel Smith from Alberta, and Tim Houston from Nova Scotia, Liberals and Conservatives working together. And I'm sure if the Democrats were there, we'd work with them too to promote Canada, promote our province to invest.
All right.
Rob, well, you know as well as I do, buddy, that you've got to make sure you show up for the job the legislature, the people sent you there too.
Okay.
Promoting Nova Scotia is always the right thing to do.
That's it. That's all we have for the Sackville Newsday panel today. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Rob Batherson and Matt Whynott. Focus Nova Scotia. Talkback up next.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Something a little bit different today. Today's topic is parenting and Canada's spanking law. Corporal punishment to discipline a child. Should that be allowed? That's the big question. Should that be allowed? Should that continue to be legal in Canada? Should parents be allowed to spank their children? Or should the criminal code that allows that to continue, the section of the criminal code that allows that to continue, should that be repealed? What do you think? What's your opinion on that? The reason we want to raise it today is because there is a major new report. It's from the Canadian Journal of Public Health, peer-reviewed, very prestigious journal. And the researchers who published this report say the section of the criminal code that allows parents and teachers to use corporal punishment as a form of discipline for a child, that should be repealed, should be eliminated, should be done away with. Let me quote here from this report. No research has ever found that spanking is related to beneficial outcomes for children's health and development. And quote, an important step in advancing child protection in Canada is to repeal the law permitting spanking. The specific section of the criminal code is section 43, and this is what it says under correction of a child by force. Quote, every school teacher, parent, or person standing in the place of a parent is justified in using force by way of correction toward a pupil or child, as the case may be, who is under his care, if the force does not exceed what is reasonable under the circumstances. And these researchers say that needs to go. That kind of physical force in the name of correcting a child's behavior should not be allowed. And they point out that Canada is a laggard by continuing to have that kind of law on the books. They say countries all over the world that would be considered peer countries to Canada that had these types of laws on their books have since done away with them, and Canada should do the same. In recent years, in the Parliament, there have been efforts to have that section of the criminal code repealed. None of them have passed. There was a bill in the Senate put forward by Senator Kutcher that sought to have Section 43 repealed. It went nowhere, made it to the committee stage, but that was as far as it went. Peter Julian, the former NDP MP from BC who lost the seat in the last election, had a bill in the House that sought to repeal Section 43 of the criminal code, argued that the section of the criminal code was outdated and that it harmed children, but that died on the order table when the election was called. When that bill was being debated, the most vocal opponents to repealing that section of the criminal code that allows for corporal punishment came from teachers' unions, concerned that teachers could be exposed to criminal charges if, for example, they had to use physical force to break up a fight or deal with a violent student. It's not that they supported the use of corporal punishment. They were more concerned about potential legal exposure for people working in the education system. They said if you repeal this, you'll need to replace it with something that offers some sort of legal protection for education workers dealing with violence in the schools on a daily basis, and we've talked about that in the past. By way of a little bit of context, because this section of the criminal code has been challenged in the courts, it went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada back in 2004, and in that ruling laid down some ground rules about what's allowed and when things go too far. But back in 2004, the Supreme Court ruled that parents can use corporal punishment, but only on children between the ages of 2 and 12 years old. It must be for correction. It should not be done out of anger. The corrective force must be minor, meaning no belts, no straps, no rulers, no wooden spoons. It must be what the court called transitory. In other words, not the sort of force that leaves marks or bruises. Think black eyes and the like. Can't cause injuries, can't be used to humiliate the child or instill fear in the child. But there were critics of that ruling from both sides. They basically said, you've just muddied the waters. We need more clarity. According to the report released this week, there have been 17 different attempts to repeal this section of the criminal code. There will probably be a few more because of the details that are in this report. But the authors say the evidence is clear. There is no benefit to spanking a child. None at all, they say. But there are lots of potential harms. Physical injuries, involvement with the local child welfare services, developmental problems, behavioral problems, mental health problems, physical health conditions, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, and a cycle of violence. But those who were spanked as children are more likely to spank their own children. And because of this section of the criminal codes, parents can do so as long as the force is deemed to be reasonable. But should even that be allowed? That is the question that we would like you to answer today. So help us out by giving us a call. Should parents be allowed to spank their children? Be allowed to use corporal punishment to correct a child's behavior, or should the section of the criminal code that permits that still to this day be repealed, as so many experts in the field say it should be? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, please mention that. We'll make your call a priority. Disciplining the child and corporal punishment. Have your say. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Canada has a spanking law. Did you know that? It's still on the books. People don't think it should be on the books. Leading researchers in childhood development, parenting, and the spanking law. That's our topic on Talkback today, with 5 lines available. The wait won't be too long. Using corporal punishment to discipline a child. Should that continue to be legal in Canada? Should parents be allowed to spank their children? Or should the law that allows that to continue, which is Section 43 of the Criminal Code, should that be repealed? What are your thoughts on this, please? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Don't be shy. Carlo in Calgary. Hello, Carlo.
How you doing, Rob?
Yeah, I'm good, Carlo. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, about that spanking, right?
Yes.
I grew up in an Italian family, and I got spanked. And a lot of us got spanked, right?
Yes.
And you know what? It doesn't harm the kid. It disciplines the kid. That's what I see.
Okay. The researchers would disagree with you, Carlo. They say there's no evidence that it is beneficial to the child at all, but it could actually cause great harm to a child down the road.
You know what, Rob? That's not true, because back in the old days, they got whipped.
Yes.
And you know what?
Yes.
Even my parents, they got whipped with bean stalks, right? And you know what?
Sure.
They got disciplined. They got.
Yes.
And since these kids don't get a little pat on the ass, they do what they want. They look at you and off on the police, this and that. I don't think it's a good idea.
You don't think it's a good idea to repeal that section of the criminal code? No. Okay. I mean, you say, back in the old days, but, were they really the good old days?
I think
they were
the
good
than what it is
You
now.
think they were better than it was?
Oh, yes. Way better than the way the world's going now. Believe me.
So, for example, we've talked and we've done shows about this, the lack of discipline in the schools, for example, and students speaking back to teachers and whatnot. Do you think that is because of maybe the decline in the use of corporal punishment?
Yep. And plus, when they took the strap out, that was another thing. Because we got strapped and then we walked a straight line. Even when we came home, the teacher phoned, right? We knew right away, walk a straight line. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you spank your kids?
Oh, yeah. I spanked them when they grew up. I lived down on acreage, right? You don't do that. They mouth you off. I give them a little spanking, and out they went, and they did it. No harm. There's no harm to that.
No harm to it. Well, again, I come back to this, that's not what the research in this report says. There can be significant harm to the child, but I appreciate it. I appreciate your point of view. I am a child of the 70s and the 80s. I experienced physical discipline at home, which is not to say I think is a good thing. That's my own opinion. It was certainly a normal thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I hold no grudges against my parents for using corporal punishment on me or anything. That's what they thought was best at the time. They were only doing what they experienced from their own parents, my grandparents, when they were children. And I was raised at a time when corporal punishment in the schools was quite common, which, in my own opinion, I don't view as the good old days. But you do, and I appreciate your opinion, Carlo. Thank you. Thank you for your opinion. 1-833-668-2577, off and running to Kincardine. Mike is on the line. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Mike.
I was raised in a European household, right? And the wooden cook spoon was used if I got out of line, right? Mm-hmm. However, people are complaining today about discipline in schools, discipline in, respectful behavior and all this other stuff here. So whether it is a wooden cook spoon, a swat across the butt, or something, I think what we're missing in today's disciplining of kids is consequences. Now, some people are advocating physical ones, but do they have to really be physical consequences? My answer would probably be no. I think what there really needs to be is accountability and consequences for your behavior, and these have to be learned behaviors. However, our school system right now and I have friends who are teachers and a relative who's a teacher, they will not allow consequences to be imposed on students, right? And I think we need to now go back to accountability and consequences. Do they have to be physical? Probably not. But I definitely believe we need accountability and consequences for bad behavior, mouthing off, and everything else. And
right. Yeah, but you don't think we have to go back to the days. You don't think we have to go back to the days of, students being struck with rulers or getting the leather strap or anything like that?
I was in the Catholic schools, right? And some of the nuns walked up and down the aisles of your desk, and they had their rulers and the strap and everything else, right? I don't want to go back to those days, but I believe there needs to be consequences. And the other thing I think we need is a change in attitude of parents. If I did something bad at school and my parents heard about it, not only would there be consequences at school, there'd be consequences at home.
Consequences at home. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. But you don't necessarily look back, as I said, as the good old days.
Yeah. No.
Right. Okay.
But I do think we have swung the pendulum way too far to the other side, and we need to really put meaningful consequences. That's my thoughts, Rod.
Yeah, fair enough. I appreciate you sharing them. 1-833-668-2577. There are calls to repeal what's known as Canada's spanking law. That's Section 43 of the Criminal Code, with a new report suggesting it's of no benefit whatsoever to the child. It can cause harm to the child. What do you think? Should we get rid of that? Many countries, 65 countries around the world, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Germany, South Korea, many countries that you would consider to be peer countries to Canada, they've done away with this. And these researchers are saying we're out of step with the times. Are we out of step with the times by continuing to basically allow corporal punishment to discipline children? Your opinion, please, on Talkback, on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Using corporal punishment to discipline a child. Where do you stand on that? There are calls for what's known as the spanking law in Canada, Section 43 of the Criminal Code, to be repealed because of the harms that it could do to children. Where do you stand on that? 1-833-668-2577. All men so far. No moms out there, no grandmoms. Frank in Kitchener. Hello, Frank.
Yes. Hello, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Frank. Good to hear from you. What's your opinion?
Well, I'm a survivor of childhood trauma and abuse, and I was spanked repeatedly before the age of 5. It will be in my new book entitled Survive, Strive, and Thrive. But coming out through that, it directly ties into the fact that I had to deal with too much cortisol in my brain, and that because I have lived experience with all these types of things, to get to where I am today as a happy and productive citizen was definitely a humongous challenge. Like, I'm 54 years old now, coming through all of that. But yes, there were consequences and lasting effects from the from the spanking I got as a small child. Fortunately, it ended, but it ended too late in my life to turn around a chronic disease, which I suffer, which was directly caused by the stress and the cortisol and the excess cortisol. So for people that, so I disagree with anybody that says it doesn't have lasting effects, because it does. But I'm so glad I got the help and the therapy I needed to get to the other side. But just putting that out there as
well, I appreciate that, and I don't know how open you. Yeah. I don't know how open you want to be, Frank. We have a few minutes left here. I am curious how that manifested.
In my book.
How did that manifest itself? How did that manifest itself?
You mean in terms of the health challenges that I got?
How it affected you? Was it mental? Was it physical? Was it both?
Well, both, and emotional and psychological as well. Yeah, it was all three.
Right, all three.
It was all three. Yeah, and it contributed to worsening of my Crohn's disease symptoms because if you know anything about that disease, or for the listeners out there, it's not only induced by stress, but it can be an aggravating factor as well.
Right. We've heard from some callers already. Well, it's important to instill discipline in a child and to correct bad behavior.
I get that.
Right.
And the goal is, when you're disciplining your children, is to get them to a point where they're self-disciplined. And trust me, this is a battle. I battled a lot of bad habits over the years, and it takes a development of new habits, new pathways in your brain, a new system of discipline, a self-discipline, to get to where I am today. So that part of it is important, but are there other ways we can get there? And the answer is yes.
Look, thank you for being open. Thank you for sharing your experiences, Frank. All the best to you with you and your book. I wish you the best of success with that. We'll be right back after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Our topic today, parenting, the spanking law, corporal punishment to discipline a child. We have a spanking law on the books. There are calls again for it to be repealed. We want to know what you think about that. Ahmed in Calgary. Hello, Ahmed.
Hello. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Ahmed. What do you think?
So I kind of agree with that. I'm a child of the 70s, 80s, and I had an unhealthy fear of my father for being spanked. And I vowed that I would not put my children through that. So I'm all for, repealing the spanking law. But what I did when I was raising my children, and this may sound cruel, but I only had to do it once, was when my boys were young, if they did something wrong, I put a couple drops of Tabasco sauce in their mouths.
Oh, my God.
Let them cry for like 5 minutes, and then gave them some bread and olive oil to cool it down. But from that point forward, anytime they'd go out of line, all I'd have to do is I'll get the hot sauce, and then I'd go to the fridge and just rattle the bottles. Instantly, they'd be like, no. So I instilled a healthy fear of their consequences, right? Actually, the consequences, that, hey, if you do something wrong, this will happen. And I never had to once spank them, and I've been told I have some of the most well-behaved boys in the world.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I don't know. Would that be considered corporal punishment? I mean, it was painful for them, was it not? Caused pain?
It was painful for them the one time, yes.
Just one time.
But it's just that once. See, again, the problem is, and I believe several callers before said this, is there's no consequences to their actions, so they can do whatever they want. And that's why a lot of these kids just don't give a rip.
Right.
If you understand, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, sure. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You don't think you have potentially caused them harm that would damage them in any way?
No. So when I was, again, younger, I was a compulsive liar to my father, but only my father, because of my fear from him. Both my sons can approach me with anything. My son once damaged my new car, and he knew there were consequences to his actions, but he didn't fear me. And he was able to tell me the truth, and he was able to tell me what happened. And I didn't lose my mind. I was calm, and I just basically, I didn't have to do the corporal punishment because he knew he wasn't going to get in trouble for it because he was truthful.
Okay. Thank you, Ahmed, for your call today and your insight. Let's go to Nova Scotia for the first time today. Mike is in Nova Scotia. Hello, Mike.
Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Good to hear from you today. Yeah. What's your opinion on the topic?
Yeah. I guess my thoughts on the matter, I mean, I struggle with this every day, but, I don't think you can take that tool away from a parent that's in their toolbox because, you do have to, I guess, inflict negative emotion in the child to get in their way sometimes, right? And, timeouts are, a good go-to tool for that. But, there's times when that isn't enough. It doesn't work, So you do have to get in the kid's way, right? So I guess, for example, say the kid wants to, draw on the couch with a marker, and he thinks that's funny. And so you put him in timeout, and then he starts to think timeout is funny. Well, he's not getting the message, right? So you kind of have to escalate and, use the minimum force necessary to inflict negative emotion to get the point across, I guess.
Okay. And what would that look like? Minimum force?
Well, spanking if necessary.
Like what would be reasonable? What would be reasonable? Spanking?
Well, whatever makes them cry. Whatever makes them stop laughing, let's say. So say, he's
all right.
Sticking forks in the electrical sockets. It's like, you can't do that. But he thinks it's funny, and he's running around. And there's been times when I spank my kid's bum, and they laugh at that. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I got to put a little bit more force in it because you're not getting the point. And then after that, they kind of get it, right? So it's it's a minimum force necessary kind of thing, And you got to be careful too. It's tough because you could be having a bad day at work and come home and take out frustrations unknowingly, right? Like it's a fine line that parents are always walking, right? Like
yes, absolutely.
It's very tough, but you can't take.
So when these researchers say there's there, and again, this is a major report in a very distinguished scientific journal.
I know.
And it says there's no benefit to this whatsoever. But you're exposing the child to, developmental problems, behavioral problems, mental health problems, substance abuse problems down the road, that kind of thing.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I say phooey to that study because,
really?
there's a definite stigma against spanking in the culture today. And what's the state of the mental health of children today?
Well, it's
not
terrible.
Great.
Yeah. No, it's not good.
And there's no spanking. No. So I think it's.
I don't know if that's because there's no spanking or whether that's because of the proliferation of social media, I think is more responsible than, say, the decline in corporal punishment. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Like, you have to get in a kid's way to make them understand that there's certain behaviors that are unacceptable. Because if they don't learn that in the home, they're going to leave the home, and then the cruel world is going to teach them that their behavior is unacceptable, not a loving parent. And that's an awful destiny to give to a child.
All right. Thank you for your call. Mike, maybe you have a counter opinion. Someone else who's listening, 1-833-668-2577. It's still quite prevalent in Canada. The use of corporal punishments is big screaming headline in the National Post. 20% of Gen Z and millennial Canadians still spank their kids. Should it be legal? 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion here on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Every school teacher, parent, or person standing in the place of a parent is justified in using force by way of correction toward a pupil or child, as the case may be, who is under his care, if the force does not exceed what is reasonable under the circumstances. That is Section 43 of the Criminal Code. It's also known as the spanking law in this country, and researchers are crying out for it to be repealed. What do you think? Rob in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. Hello, Rob.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Yeah, very good, Rob. What do you think?
Well, I'm the same as everybody else has been talking. I'm a kid of the 70s and 80s, and I had an older brother. I wouldn't say we were, the best kids as far as what we had to do. We were all, I would say, a lot of us kids were kind of free sailing, growing up in small towns, and just basically coming home when the street lights came on, that type of thing. And I think that with modern, like when I say modern, I want to say like, today's disciplines are probably, is something that we would have to improve on. I think the spanking law, I remember, like my brother, stealing some cigarettes back in those days, and, our parents, again, making us smoke a half a pack of smokes in front of them, like that. Yeah. And then, just stuff like, sticking your hands in a rotating tire and stuff like that. And those little smacks and those things were, keeping you away from like losing fingers and things like that as a kid. And I think that just that mentality, how we were growing up, we learned it. And I feel like I always hate to say old school, but I feel like, a lot of that stuff did work then, and we could do a lot of things today that could work now as well. And I think that's just probably a thing that, depending on the individual child or kid himself, depending on who he's affiliated with and that type of thing, can drive that. So, yeah.
All right. People are bringing this up old school, and I'm more or less from the old school as well, in my mid 50s. But the researchers are saying it's not old school; it's outdated. It's archaic. It's borderline barbaric, and it should be done away with.
We could attest to that. One of the things that I think that was beneficial when I look at maybe our generation of kids, because I'm right around that age as well, is that, to me it was like a rules. It was the rules, and it was like the laws of being in the real world. And if you did something that was, like property damage or some sort of mischief or, breaking a car window or whatever it was, that, I felt like that was the way that it turned you into that person, so that when you became 16, 17, 18 years old and things were legal, that, you already knew that, if I go touch that, or I go do that, or I break into that, I'm going to jail, or I'm going to, and it's a lot more. And I think that was, like, I never had any mental consequences over my parents, using the belt or, making us smoke cigarettes or any of that stuff. I remember those moments. Sure, I do. But I also I remember being taught a lesson as well of being a good role model and a good citizen, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Rob. It's interesting in the write-up that's from Sharon Kirky's story in the Post today. The researchers lament the idea that it doesn't seem to matter. It's just instilled even to this day in the culture that there's something to this, and that it's a necessity of parenting to use corporal punishment, and no amount of research that they do, even though they have copious amounts of research, seems to be able to sway anyone's opinion. And it doesn't seem to be doing that today. Connor in Calgary. Thank you for calling, Connor. You're on the air.
Yeah. Hello, Rob.
Hello,
Rob,
Connor.
I'm 61, so I grew up in an era, sir, where spanking was normal. And so I was spanked a few times. And I don't blame our parents for that today because of the lack of education that they had in and around, probably the detriments of it. Just quickly, Rob, I don't know how many times I got spanked, but I do remember 3. I was thinking about it. And what I remember about those, Rob, was especially the one that I got from my dad, was that it wasn't about any pain that was being inflicted. It was it was the humiliation that I got, because I always looked at my dad as my everything, my best friend, the guy that couldn't do anything wrong. And, all of a sudden here he is hitting me. And I can see where that could, in some cases probably, or maybe a lot, cause emotional scarring. I'm not saying I feel that way, but I do remember how humiliating it was. And Rob, I've got a Bachelor of Education, and what I remember about psychology class in terms of spanking a kid was that spankings tend to come as a knee-jerk reaction. They're done out of instant anger for something the kid's done. And the evidence that they were presenting was that if you were to tell your kid at that point, you know what, go to your room, you're getting a spanking in 10 minutes, most of those spankings wouldn't happen. Because the spanking, but by that time the parents calm down. And I just think
that's interesting.
Yes, it is. And I totally believe that too. And so it is. That was one of the very important points, is they're done out of anger. They're not done for discipline. They're done because you're angry, and that's how you react. The other thing that they taught us in that course was when you're doing that, when you decide to grab your kid and strike them, which is what it is, you're showing them that it's going to be my way, and in order to get my way, I'm going to inflict pain in a violent way. And that is why it goes from generation to generation, because I think that you teach kids that if you want your way, this is how you get it.
Yeah, and in fact, that's in this research. If you were spanked as a child, you're much more likely to spank your own children.
So you know what I do, Rob? I can hear the music.
There's a cycle. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Go ahead.
I'll just say quickly, I don't administer for my kids. I've never spanked them, and they're great kids. They are. They're grown up now. What I used to do if they did something wrong was I took something away from them rather than give them something like a punishment, like a hit. I took something.
You would deny them a privilege, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sure thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Understood, sir. Thank you for your call, Connor in Calgary. Be right back. More of your calls on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should parents be allowed to spank their children, or should the spanking law be repealed? As researchers are again calling for in this country, that's Section 43 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Have your say on this one. Chris is in Calgary. Hello, Chris.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, very good, Chris. What's your opinion?
I think you have to look at it per child. Like, I had two younger brothers. My mom could spank the heck out of the one, and he wouldn't respond. The other one, you give him a slap on the hand, and he would cry, and that would be it. The other one, who wouldn't respond to spanking, you had to isolate him on a chair in the middle of a room. And that just devastated him. So I think you have to respond per child, what's going on. And I don't think after the age of 5 it's any, I used to spank my kids when you'd say, don't touch or don't do that, when they were small, to teach them that was dangerous. But not after the age of 5, when you can start to reason with them. Then you reason with them, and then you try other methods of punishment. Like somebody said, you isolate them on a chair, or you take a privilege away, because otherwise it's not going to work. And then you have to give them consequences. One of my kids said, "You're not giving me what I want, basically, so I'm going to call social services." And my response to that was, go ahead and call social services. But once you leave this house, you're not coming back. And that was more devastating to them than anything else.
Okay. I'm just going to read you from this report. I'm just going to read you one line from this report, okay? No research has ever found that spanking is related to beneficial outcomes for children's health and development. What do you think about that? No beneficial outcomes.
I think that's crap. When you look at today's
You
society,
think that's crap? Really?
Yes.
Really?
A lot of children aren't giving. I think it's continuity of responsibility. Okay, so if you have children, it's your responsibility to teach them right from wrong. And if you're not teaching them right from wrong, then that's not going to work. I mean, I don't mean when I say spank a child, you give them a smack on the bottom or a tap on the hand to tell them, no, that's dangerous or that's not appropriate because up until 5, really, you can't reason with them to explain to them that what you're doing is dangerous.
Okay, thank you. Got to run. Thank you. Busy first hour. We'll pick it up in the second hour right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Parenting and the spanking law, our topic today. Using corporal punishment to discipline a child. Calls for that to be repealed. We have a spanking law on the books. Researchers say it has to go. What comes through in this report, it's a major report in a very distinguished scientific journal, is how common this still is, corporal punishment. The rallying cry from these researchers, and I mean it's loud and clear, is that this should not be the way things are in Canada here in the year 2026. They say this should not be happening. At the rate it is still happening. And the section of the criminal code that allows it to occur needs to go. That's their opinion. Sharon Kirky, who I just love reading in Post Media, the Health Beat journalist, excellent article summarizing this report. Encourage you all to read it if you come across it. Very easy to find on the interwebs. The headline, about 20% of Gen Z and millennial Canadians still spank their kids. When asked whether they have ever spanked their children on the bottom or with their hand, about 20% of younger parents aged 18 to 27 and millennial parents aged 28 to 42 said yes. For the Generation X cohort, people 43 to 49 at the time the data were collected, 45% said they have spanked their own child. While fewer millennial and Gen Z parents said they have spanked their kids, they're still Gen Z and millennials. One of the researchers said they're probably having their parents, the children's grandparents, encouraging them to do it. This is what you have to do, making them feel like they're doing the right thing, that this is how you raise children. But should it be part of how you raise children? That's what we're asking today. What do you think? Because these researchers are saying all the evidence, all the science indicates that this does more harm than good. Actually, they say no good comes of it at all, but lots and lots of bad can come from it. Quote, studies have associated spanking with risks of physical injury to the child, risks of escalating violence, risks of developmental, behavioral, mental health problems, substance abuse, fractured parent-child relationships, higher levels of antisocial behavior in children, and lower executive functioning. And of course, none of that is good. 1-833-668-2577 there. I think there are 2-3 lines available there for you. Alex is in Calgary today. Thanks for calling, Alex. You're on the air. What do you think?
Hey, Rob, how's it going? Good to listen to your show. Second time on. So I have an 11-year-old daughter, and yes, so she has never been spanked. I do not believe in it at all. This law should be repealed, and this is why. Kids are not stupid. They pick up on your energy, they pick up on your actions, and they emulate you. And you're only teaching kids 2 things when you decide to lay a hand on them. The first is that they're at your mercy, at your apparent whim. The second is that it's okay to use violence to get what you want. And that causes bullying, that causes mistrust, that causes conflict. It's definitely a generational thing where you learn from your parents, you pass it on, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, the chain's got to be broken. We got to realize that, no, you got to shower the kids with love, respect, explanations, and you got to make sure that they're emulating the proper behaviors. If you're not doing your job as a parent, the kids will not turn out well. It's all on the parents. And I have to admit, some kids are tougher than others. There's no doubt about that. But there is no reason ever to resort to violence to prove a point. That's the opposite of what we should be teaching our kids.
So if I could, Alex, what do you do instead to instill discipline in your children?
Oh, it's very simple. Yeah, it's you have to sit them down, explain to them what they did wrong, and if it's a serious infraction, then yeah, take away privilege. You have to just let them know that this behavior is not acceptable, and because of that, we're not going to go to the pet store today, or we're not going to do this, or you can't play on your laptop or for Roblox. You can't do these things that you're so accustomed to doing because you did something wrong. It's really, really simple. You never have to resort to violence.
Okay. Now, why did you make this decision to parent in this way?
Oh, it's pretty straightforward. I was spanked when I was a kid. I'm a millennial. And it's made me feel fear from the people that I thought were supposed to be taking care of me. It made me feel like, well, okay, they can apparently do whatever they want to me, even if I don't feel it's justified. And I promised myself that I would never, ever do that to my own child. I was also bullied in school because, violence was the way of the schoolyard sometimes. But I never believed that had to be the end-all, be-all. We're smart animals. We are capable of evolving past the point of saying, oh, me angry, me hit.
Interesting. You're in the minority opinion today, Alex, but I appreciate you taking up the cause, sir. Thank you for the call. To Darlene in Red Deer today. Hello, Darlene.
Oh, hello, Rob. How are you today?
I'm very good, Darlene. Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
What's your opinion here?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad it's not about Donald Trump today, so I can actually listen to you because I can't handle any more Donald Trump news.
Understood. Yeah. We all have our breaking points when it comes to Trump. I understand that.
I love you, but I can't handle anymore.
It's okay.
I love the last caller. Well, first of all, it's really good to hear a lot of guys calling in on this because I am a mom of 3 boys. Well, men now. My oldest is 31, and I'm a grandma now, so I can kind of speak on this a little bit. I raised 3 boys mostly as a single parent, and my boys turned out really great. They're awesome men, very compassionate and kind and humble and all that. But my ex-husband and I disagreed on discipline. He was very heavy-handed. He was almost aggressive, and I never spanked my kids. I always disagreed with it. I thought there was better ways to do it. And so when we separated, my kids, when they went to their fathers, they were always, a little unstable, a little bit more angry when they came home and stuff like that. Whereas my approach was always, let's talk about this. How do we deal with this issue or whatever? And long story short is now that they're growing up, trust me, but they don't trust. They come to me for advice. They come to me. We have such a good relationship, but they don't really go to their dad because they have a fear of their dad. So, yeah. And I think the reason I'm 59, and I think the reason that I was spanked and all that, had the strap in school, But I think the reason I don't like this kind of approach is because my grandfather was my hero. I looked up to him as a young girl. And then one day he spanked me. And after that, I just kind of lost trust. I thought, oh, wait a minute. Who are you? I don't trust you anymore. So it's about trust and safety. And there are other ways of raising your kids. So you don't have to be them like that.
Thank you, Darlene in Red Deer. All right, a decidedly different take here in hour number 2 than what we were hearing in the first hour. Let's keep the opinions coming. 1-833-668-2577. Corporal punishment to discipline a child. Our topic today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should the spanking law be repealed? That's what we're asking today here on Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. Who is up next? Carrie? Carrie? Okay, let's go to Calgary again. Carrie is in Calgary. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Rob. Oh, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I'm such a big fan.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I can't believe I'm talking to you. I'm such a big fan of yours.
Oh, okay. So I'll get right into it.
Let's get right to it. Yeah.
Let's get right to it. Okay. I do want to say, and hey, this is my opinion, but I just want to say that every parent who called in should be ashamed of themselves for justifying hitting a child. Okay. There's no reasonable physical punishment. It's all the same thing. Slapping, spanking, putting hot sauce in your mouth, it's abuse. I mean, it's violating to a child's body autonomy and dignity. It leads to adult mental health impairment. I'm a parent of 2 children, never hit them at all. And my brother and I grew up in a household where we were spanked and slapped. And I'll say that none of it was beneficial to us in any capacity. I never remember why I got spanked, but I 100% remember being hit by my parents.
So with your own children, Carrie, what do you do instead?
So my children are like upper late teenagers. They're adults now. So it's like, they obviously when they were children.
But when they were younger. So when they were younger,
what
did you do?
When they were younger, absolutely. I took away things that they loved. So they couldn't use the TV or the computers or, your iPod, stuff that they wanted to use every day. So that went away, or they were grounded, or they missed things that they had looked forward to doing. All those were just removed. So it was like they wanted those things, and then they couldn't have them. That made a difference, and I found it was easier that way. But I never once crossed my mind to hit them. There's no reason for it. You can do other things.
It's still, what I was surprised by reading this is still quite common.
I'm sure it is quite common.
It's almost a third of parents spank their kids.
And that's wild to me. And my children witnessed a spanking. They were at their dad's house with their stepmom, and their stepmom in public pulled her son's pants down and spanked his bare bum. And they were like traumatized. They couldn't believe that this happened. Really? They were embarrassed for him, and it's deplorable. I mean, there's other ways to discipline children. We don't have to hit our kids. It's abuse. There's no way around it.
Okay. No way around it. Okay, Carrie, thank you. Yeah, decidedly different tone in hour number 2, as I said before. Joe in Nova Scotia. Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Joe. What's your opinion here?
Well, first I want to say it's a really tough topic, and pat on the back for bringing it up and talking about it. I remember when I'm 50 now, so I remember when I was in elementary. If you weren't paying attention to the teacher as he was writing on the chalkboard, he'd take that piece of chalk that was in his hand and he'd whip it at your head. And this happened quite a bit to me anyway. And in my own case, my old man, if we messed something up, he had a big leather belt that he'd use on us, me and my brother. But just recently, I've got 2 kids of my own. They're 14 and 11. My daughter's going to be 12 next week actually. So they're within 2 years of each other. But my ex used to just slap my son starting at 4 years old. And, obviously now we're divorced, but, raising this subject up with her, just started a fight, right? So it was, almost a subject that you couldn't discuss. And I just think it's the wrong thing to do. I've never hit my kids, and they're wicked with me, but when it comes to situations with, their mother and them, and then myself and my kids, it's created kind of a situation where, if you use that to control your kids, like abuse to control your kids, instead of discipline, which I really feel what's happened in my situation, the outcome is, once you create fear in a child, you've got control over them. You see it all the time, right? Break them down and build them back up. And it's just a sin, and I still have to wonder in my own mind whether it's still going on or not, right?
Okay.
I don't think my son would put up with it now, but yeah, I mean, it's just the wrong thing to do.
But you think it's wrong? You think it's wrong? Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate your call. I don't mean to cut you off, but we're a little tight on time, so we'll have to run there. The call is, because we still have a law in the books that allows this to happen, Section 43 of the Criminal Code, the call is repeal it. That's what we're asking about today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should the spanking law be repealed? Dallas in Cambridge. Thank you for calling, Dallas. Hi, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What's your opinion, Dallas?
How are you today?
Good. Thank you.
Right. Well, should the law, I don't know if the law should be repealed. Whether it actually does anything or not, I don't know. I just like to share a real quick little story. And it sure solved a lot of my problems back in the day. My two sisters got playing with a pack of matches, and they set the barn on fire. After the fire was put out, the two of them, I was about 6, maybe 6.5. I can still see it plain as day. The two sisters were standing there, and Dad sitting at the end of the table and pointed at the one and said, "Come here." He gave her 3 cracks on the ass, sent her on her way. The one that was waiting for it was bawling harder than the one that got it. But to make the point, I was standing there looking, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to know that.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And how long ago was that, Dallas? But how long ago was that?
Oh, that was,
like what decade
now,
would that have been?
56 years ago.
Yeah, 56 years ago. Okay. So it's the year 2026. 65 other countries that used to have these laws on the books have done away with them. Countries that are a lot like Canada, Norway and Sweden and Finland, Germany, countries like have all had these laws. They've done away with them. And these researchers are saying, we need to get with the times. This is not how it should be in the year 2026. What do you think about that? There's no benefit to it.
Well, I don't know about benefits and this and that. My 2 boys, when I was bringing them up, one's a stepson, the older one's a stepson, and then I had my actual son. It's a tough cookie to crumble. Let's put it that way. Whether in fact it's right or wrong, it all depends on the situation. Now, I'm not going to lie. I had my son a couple of years ago pinned against the wall with my fist cocked, and he was waiting for it. But I certainly never struck the child. Well, he was a man then. But
that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about, should you be, spanking, slapping, wrapping them? Yeah. Should be able to.
Well.
Or is it, as we've heard from other callers, is that abuse and archaic, barbaric, and unnecessary?
Either all the above, not necessarily. It all depends.
Okay, gotta go. Because the alternative that we've heard from other callers in this hour is, well, what? Just deny them privileges. There are alternatives to becoming violent.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Parenting and the spanking law, our topic today, using corporal punishment to discipline children. Should that be allowed? Should it continue to be legal in Canada? It is. Or should the law that allows it to continue, namely Section 43 of the Criminal Code, should that be repealed? 1-833-668-2577. It's quite prevalent, still very common, even among affluent, well-educated parents. 28% of parents of all ages report spanking their kids. 28%. I'm surprised to read that. More than half of the parents in the survey had a household income of $100,000 or more. 40% had a university degree. Quoting from one of the lead researchers, they may have spanked their own children and think there's nothing wrong with it. My child turned out great. It's hard to change people's way of thinking, no matter how much evidence or data you provide. And they provide lots of data, and they say it's bad. And that the Criminal Code Section 43 should be repealed. They're adamant. Canada needs to get with the times and repeal Section 43 of the Criminal Code. What do you think? John is on the line. John is in Calgary today. Hello, John.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, John. Thank you. Yeah. What's your opinion, John?
Yeah, I agree. They should repeal it. I grew up in the 80s. Had an older sibling, my brother. He was 5 years older than me. My dad was a bit of stuck in the old ways and the whole do as I say, and if not, I'll kick you out. Like, I've seen my brother. My brother was a big guy. He was by the time he was 16, 6'3", 300 pounds, big ZZ Top beard, everything like that. So he was a huge guy, which I looked up to. I'm like, well, this guy could beat anybody up. But when it came to my dad, he was like a little puppy, scared, did not know what to do, always jumped whenever my dad barked. And I've seen my dad do a few mean things to my brother. And growing up, I saw that, and I'm like, that's just coming out of hate. Like, where's this coming from? And I learned, I got hit a few times too. And to this day, I lost a whole bunch of respect for my father because of that. Definitely with me, I have two kids now, two daughters. And growing up, I remember this. I remember those incidents and the fear that it gave me. I do not want my daughters to feel that towards me. As a grown up, I'd rather not, when I ever went back home to visit, I'd spend as little amount of time with my father as possible because I resented him. But he was still my dad. I still respected him. And that's what I grew up learning. I'm like, when my kids grow up, I don't want them to have that feeling towards me because it sticks in them. It's fear. You're putting fear into your own offspring, which is horrible because, as I grew up, I did not want to hang out with them. I did not want to have anything to do with them.
Fair enough. So what do you do instead? What do you do instead with your children, John?
It's exactly a few callers said a couple before there was discipline as in taking things away from them. The first time my daughter did something bad, I took a toy. I'm like, I'm taking this away. You can't have it until I give it back to you. I hid it. I completely forgot about it. But my daughter, she did not. She knew that toy was gone and she was never getting it back. I told her, I'll give it to you back one day when I feel you're ready. I completely forgot about it. I placed it on a shelf, and 2 years later, I came across. I'm like, oh. And she's like, yeah, you took that away from me when I did so and so something bad. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I slowly, every time she did something bad, I take it away, but then I give it back to her a few days later, and she learned from that. And then I found my second daughter. Same thing happened. She did something bad, and then my first daughter came around. Nope, don't. Daddy will take it away, and you'll never get it back. And I heard her saying that, and I was like, it wasn't fear. It wasn't hatred towards me. She knew that there would be responsibility.
It was consequence. There was a consequence. Tied. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
And they learned from that. She taught the younger one, and the younger one was like, oh, well, they know we won't hit her because, we were brought up in the family. I grew up in the 80s, so all the stories, I could go hours about that.
Oh, sure, yeah. I know all about that. Yeah.
But it's just in life too. If somebody gets caught doing something bad, the system does not beat them. They don't torture them. We don't do that. We put them in jail. They learn what happened from the consequences. They get released, and hopefully, they don't do it again. But we got to treat our kids like we treat grown-ups. They're smart. Okay. They understand. They see things. So
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Yep, thank you. To Red Deer again, Jack. Hi, Jack.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Jack. What's your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, hitting them as an adult with a fully developed brain and intellect, I think reflects very poorly on your character. And although, like this research paper, although there are no benefits, only detriments, furthermore, I think it's just a morality issue. We're not allowed to hit other adults. We're not allowed to hit anyone. Why is it that we get to hit our kids? No, we just act as these tyrant kings. Like, kids are free souls to do what they want, and they should be free from that sort of behavior. And when you hit a kid, you know, violence breeds violence, and you can see that when it's passed generation to generation. But when you're patient with a kid, patience breeds patience. And I think that, you know, a lot of the time, as previous callers said, it is that knee-jerk reaction. I think it's a lack of, on the parents' part, an extreme lack of patience and really dedication and intention to that child.
Yeah, I'm struck by how common it still is, and the researchers seem to indicate that it's just cultural. It's just part of the culture. The grandparents have done it, parents have done it, so the next generation thinks, well, it's almost a necessity. Your child is not going to grow up the right way. It's not going to have a proper amount of discipline in their lives unless you use physical force against them by way of corporal punishment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's
this is how you raise children. It has to be part of the mix. We've heard that a lot today from other callers.
Yeah, but even with ourselves, we don't inflict pain amongst ourselves as an individual to build discipline. You build discipline through, you know, exercise, through achievement, through, you know, a small amount of hardship. But it's not violence you inflict upon yourself, and therefore you shouldn't inflict it upon children.
Okay, appreciate your opinion. Thank you, Jack. I'm just struck by how different the tone is in the second hour compared to the first hour. In the first hour, so many callers were insistent. You have to do it. You don't want to do it, but there are times when it's needed and it's necessary. It's just part of growing up. And the callers in the second hour many of them are of the opposite view. What's your view on Talkback today on News Radio? The spanking law. Should we repeal the spanking law? Let's go to Doug. Is in Calgary today. Hello, Caroline. Let's find out where Caroline is. Caroline. Hi, Caroline.
Carolyn.
Carolyn. Yeah,
Hi.
That'll do as
Carolyn.
well. Where are you, Carolyn?
I'm in Red Deer. So
in Red Deer. Okay.
I personally, I'm not for or against spanking, but I do not think that the government should be involved in what. You know, under the law, it says, you know, you can't spank a child under the age of 2. You shouldn't spank a child that's a teenager. So I just don't believe that the government or who the researcher was. Like, we have researchers that said that, hey, it's a good idea to give free drugs and controlled substances, and that has turned out to be very wrong. So I just don't trust maybe the research that's been done on this. You know,
okay, yeah, fair enough. Why do you not think it's the government's job?
Well,
because the government is certainly there's been various attempts, and by government I mean parliamentarians over the years. 17 different bills, one way or the other, have been in before the Parliament to try and repeal this section of the criminal code, saying it's outdated, it's archaic. Lots of other countries have done away with it. Why do we still do it? Why do you not think there's any merit to it?
I think the government doesn't have the right to tell parents what they should and should not do. Take that right away from them. I think that, you know, they've repealed so many laws and changed things that necessarily have not been for the betterment of our country, let's say. So that's just my feeling. I just don't.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Stay out of that.
Stay out of the house. Stay out of the house. It's the parents' job. Right? Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's the first time we've heard that argument, though. It's a compelling one. Jerry in Waterloo. Jerry is up next. Hi, Jerry.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Jerry. What's your opinion?
Well, it's kind of sad that we have to have a law, but I guess my question to those that feel it's okay to spank or hit their child is that for the child's benefit or is that for yours? Because often is, why are you spanking that child? And my guess.
Well, they would say they would say it's to correct bad behavior. I suspect most parents would say that is to correct bad behavior.
There's other ways. There's other ways. To me, that's the quick, non-thinking, reactive thing. And then, it's been touched on before. Then you're teaching your 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, oh, you don't hit at school when you're angry. But meanwhile, at home, when mom and dad are angry, they get hit. Like, it's very counterproductive. And there's, in my opinion, it's disciplining children sometimes is hard work. And I know it can be very inconvenient at times where, the kids are younger, they would get grounded. And I remember hearing them saying, Dad's not going to ground us because he's got baseball tonight. And if we get grounded, he's not going to be able to play. Well, guess what? They were shocked when they found out Dad didn't go to baseball. And they realized, ooh, I'm like, hey, and that sometimes it's an inconvenience. And the other options are choose your own adventure. Kids, there's natural consequences to your decision. And you can't get upset when something happens because that was your decision. You knew the outcome. And the other tactic we'd use is, to keep the anger, say, hey, I'm upset right now. We both need a timeout. You go sit and wait. And sometimes I'd let them stew. And stewing, they often said, was the worst part. Because it's like you've already been on trial, the jury's gone out, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting for that verdict. And they said, that was the worst. Because,
that was the worst.
And it's just, to me, hitting a child, and it's been touched on, the child is a gift to you. Why would you want to do that? Like, they're children. We're not allowed to hit. Could you imagine one of your best friends, every time they got upset at you, they hit you? How long would they be your friend? And it's okay to do that to your children. So there's other and better ways, and it's just, hey, it's, to me, hitting is out of reactive and non-thinking.
Fair enough. Yep. You're with the side today that is saying it's archaic. No evidence that it works. Causes harm to the children. Myriad of other ways to discipline a child without having to resort to physical violence of any sort. These researchers, which many of the callers have doubted the validity of the research, fair enough. But their call is get with the times, Canada, and get rid of this spanking law. More of your calls ahead on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
65 countries have done away with their so-called spanking laws, corporal punishment for children. Canada is not one of them. Sweden, 1979. Finland, 1983. Norway, 1987. Denmark, 1997. Germany did it in the year 2000. Greece in the year 2006. Dozens more. Poland, Brazil, Argentina, Ireland, Japan, South Korea. They've all done away with corporal punishment at home or in the schools. Canada has not done that. There are calls to do that. What about you? Let's go to Carstairs. Michelle, thank you for calling, Michelle. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very good. What's your opinion?
Good. So as a mom and a physician, I would say there's an abundance of evidence against spanking and corporal punishment. And with this 43rd law, I think the main issue is that it's also teachers that are exempt from prosecution with reasonable force. So it's not just parents. Personally, I think I was raised with spanking. My mom would hit me with objects as well. And so when I had my own kids, I was taught, you need to spank or you're actually going to end up with a spoiled child. And I remember not wanting to, but the first time thinking, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to spank my son. And the look that he gave me and the cry he had after that, there's no way I could ever have spanked him again, because you can't, how can you parent and have kids that are terrified of you? But also just we know that attachment effect is so strong and pervasive. I think we know better. We know better, and we have to do better. And the way that parents are parenting now is so different from the way our parents were parenting us 40 years ago, and the way our kids will parent now. And it seems barbaric when we look at this law, like what's reasonable and who decides what's reasonable in terms of abuse from a teacher or a parent.
Okay. I will say the last time there was a bill, I believe it was Peter Julian's bill. It was in the House. It was moving forward. There were submissions to the committee. The most vocal opponents of repealing Section 43 of the Criminal Code came from teachers' unions. Canadian Teachers Federation said, well, let's say a teacher is escorting an unruly student out of the classroom to the principal's office, and the teacher has to use some kind of physical force. Or if a student is harming another student or attempting to harm the teacher, shouldn't the teacher be able to use physical force to restrain the student? You would be opening up the potential for the teacher to face a criminal assault charge. They wanted some clarity on this.
I would say right now that's actually not the case. Like I have many friends who are teachers and principals who absolutely say they are not allowed to put a hand on a child, even to defend themselves. They've been, wrestled to the ground by students without any recourse. So I would say this doesn't mount to reality. And so all that this seems to be doing is aligning reality with our current law, like that it's not acceptable. No one thinks it's acceptable for a teacher to hit a child. And in fact, they would definitely lose their job if they did. But at the same time, we have a law that says that it's okay. And with parents that will defer to that and say, well, no, we have this law that protects us. So to me, this is very
should be repealed. You think it should be repealed? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Hardly any unanimity on that one, as is often the case during Talkback. Tomorrow's a Friday free-for-all Talkback, so you can take the lead tomorrow on any topic. You can start a brand new discussion of your own. Until then, we will latest breaking news here on News Radio.